Hello, everybody. I'm really excited about this session. I'm sure many of you here today know of Kelly. I'm an admirer of the way she thinks and how she just really provokes in the industry. So I'm going to let you introduce your myriad function and role and many talents in a moment. But just to set a little bit of context for what we'd like to cover today is we're going to wade way deep into the underbelly of the ad ecosystem and why does unified measurement matter, and have an opportunity to really just unpack where we are today, what's working, where we still need to go. So Kelly, why don't you tell us a little bit about your day job first, and then I'll do a little bit of scene setting.
All right. Well, I think I have the best job in television. First provocative statement, challenge. So I actually work for a media holding company, and we buy ads for some of the largest advertisers in the United States and globally. And my focus is on data, tools, and measurement that enable buying, planning, and of course, measurement. Totally straightforward. But my job on a day-to-day basis is interacting with companies like Nielsen and iSpot and VideoAmp, and then a myriad of partners like NBCU and Disney and now Netflix. So yes, we have a wide array of partnerships and capabilities that we have to navigate, and we have to bring it all together for our clients so that we can create viable upfront planning, viable programmatic capabilities, and viable ad delivery across the board that is at the right price for every advertiser that we serve.
Amazing. All right, great. So I know you have a very strong point of view about how we actually define television, and we're sitting sort of in the heart of television in some respects. And there's also video, and there's convergent TV and connected TV. Just lay it out for us very simply. How should we be talking about television?
What are you saying? You don't like AVOD, SVOD, FAST? You don't like all these fun terms that we introduce because we can't get enough acronyms? I mean, who wants another acronym out there? Everyone? We're all buying in. So I try to break it down really simply in my own mind and for my clients. And television is delivered today in two ways, very simply, right? There's live viewership, and then there's still those households that like to DVR that live viewership. And then there's on demand, right? It doesn't matter if it's streamed or if it's linear or if it's a legacy term, it does not matter. It's literally two ways to view. I'm either watching it on a schedule because it's live, or I'm watching it on demand because it's exactly what I want to watch when I want to watch it. And then on the advertising part of that equation, it gets much simpler to talk about what we need to deliver, right? Because as an ad buyer, I'm buying on a scheduled basis. So I'm buying a spot that's delivered to households across America, one creative to many households simultaneously at once. Or I'm delivering on a one-to-one basis, where it's one ad creative delivered to a very specific television device. And those would be the on-demand streaming environments. Those are the two ways I can buy. So if we simplify the way we talk about this world and the way we think about this marketplace, I really think we can do better. We can get more efficient, and we can start moving forward on some of the key things that we need to for measurement and planning.
Right, and understanding that framework is critical to solving the problem from a measurement, data, all the wiring, which we were chatting about earlier. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, though, that is a mindset shift for a lot of brands. Scheduled appointment viewing. We have, decades of normative data that tell us I need to do X, Y, Z if I'm going to move that car off the lot, sell that next, bottle of toothpaste, what have you. So how are you navigating just even the mindset shift with your advertisers before we even get into the measurement that supports it?
Well, what's fabulous about advertisers is that they're also consumers. So it's very easy to talk to them about the shift because everything's shifted within their own households. This is just the way it is. It's reality. You either accept it or you're in deep trouble. Mm-hmm. So it's a very pragmatic approach toward solving problems and moving forward. If I encounter an advertiser that still, shall we say, might be stuck in a legacy way of thinking, they're still heavily weighted toward buying spot basis or linear traditional television. I use data to convince them otherwise. That's the straightforward fact. And some of the data is better than others, other sources, and we have capabilities in some places that don't exist in others. But that's part of my job, is to help them navigate that landscape and help them be smarter and make better decisions about where they're going to be buying ads and placing their ads. And it's, as I said, it's the best job in television because we can do this, right? I have a very positive outlook that we will get there, and understanding the gaps and what we need to close is part of the process.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get into the gaps. But we'll use the framework of scheduled and on-demand viewing for our sort of broad definition for convergent TV today. But the reality is there's a ton to unpack in terms of what has to be true from the measurement from the systems, the data providers, the companies in the ecosystem. Innovid participates in that part of the ecosystem as an independent advertising and measurement platform. So we're embedded in the workflow, and you've got dozens of companies that I know that you partner and that you work with. I think your role is really fascinating because you've been a product manager and you've actually built these capabilities with partners. So for the last couple of years, you've been building out Omni, which is your platform. Give us the state of the state. Like, everyone likes to talk about all the problems with convergent and cross-platform measurement. We'll get to that, but what's working today? Where are we today? Because I think more is happening than perhaps we give ourselves credit for.
We have made huge strides in cross-platform campaign-based measurement. So if I want to look at a very specific ad campaign that's running across, scheduled and on-demand viewing, I can do it. It's possible. I'm getting good reads. I'm getting good data sets. I can make decisions. It's not at the granularity that I would like it. I would like our network partners, if you're out there, to be more transparent about where we are running at the program level, because that certainly would make my job a lot easier in terms of joining these data sets and making broader insights available for planning. But right now at the campaign level, we're pretty good. It's only going to get better from here.
Is it as fast as you'd like? Is speed a real issue?
Is speed a real issue? That's a really good question. So, I hope you all love data. Do you love data? I'm not getting a big data vibe here. Okay.
This is post-lunch sugar data high. Come on.
Okay, so what's interesting about data historically in television, as you may know, was provided by one company. They had a monopoly. I mean, technically ComScore was there, but everyone used Nielsen. Nielsen provided data from 44,000 households. That was great when TV was only scheduled. But think about all the permutation of viewership with an on-demand environment. That's not going to work. So now we're looking at really, really, really large data sets, millions of households and their viewing habits all at one time. We have second-by-second data. Sounds sexy, but what does that really mean, to your point? It means that theoretically I can get faster insights within 24 hours, 48 hours of how my advertising campaign is performed. That's possible. They're not going to be that accurate still, right? Because I'm only looking at millions of households in that time frame. I'm not looking at the total picture because there are other data sets out there that are a little bit slower that are coming in from the traditional cable providers and satellite providers. So in my parlance, I look to 48 hours for a decent read for immediate optimization and decisions. But if I'm making a longer term investment decision, I need at least 2 weeks of data. Good, solid 2 weeks of data, and that will be on a rolling, probably 9-day lag. So I really have to look to maybe 3 weeks of full campaign duration to make a good decision.
So what you're talking about, though, is very sort of in the moment. You're looking at a campaign saying, what worked? How can I make the next best decision for the next campaign? But there's also this whole other branch of cross-platform measurement that is there to provide estimates about how many people you can actually reach and to plan and forecast. How do those things work together? Like, are you using completely different tools? Is there progress more on the campaign side, but some of the bigger machinery still needs some work?
We need a lot of work on the planning side. So as I said, the campaign level is great. We get a lot of insights about duplication of reach for specific audiences from a cross-platform perspective. But from a planning and reach perspective, this is a very dynamic environment. I don't know if you've noticed recently, but there's a new streamer like every day that's introducing advertising. And apparently Hallmark coming soon. Really excited about that, by the way. So there's no shortage of challenge in that, right? It's constantly transforming. What was true today is not going to be true tomorrow. So what we are asking our partners to do at Omnicom Media Group is to basically provide more transparency and capability, because these streamers are sitting on top of the data sets that matter for planning right now. They're sitting on them and they're not sharing. And they need to share with third parties that can make it actionable. And right now we are doing it ourselves for Omnicom Media Group and our clients, because we have to. We have to push the industry forward. We have to keep propelling action in this space because planning is a challenge. Right now, people are still planning on teeny tiny little panels. And as I've just described, the streaming meter panel for Nielsen is even smaller than the national linear panel. It's 22 22,000 households. Try projecting streaming reach across 22,000 households. I am not buying what they are selling. That does not make sense to me as a human. I just cannot imagine that they are going to capture reach appropriately across every single streaming platform. So this is why we need those larger data sets. We need them to be clean and well lit and provided by the streamers themselves. And they're doing this work anyway. If they're committed to the streaming space, you have to have these insights for your own business. We're just asking them to share with the rest of the party so that we can actually be more efficient as an industry and have third-party validation that we know we need to build the trust to really move those dollars effectively. Mm-hmm. Because right now, the existential threat to them is honestly YouTube and TikTok. And if they don't do this, that's where the money will go. Mm.
So message to the sell side that transparency actually allows for more dollars to flow. It's not necessarily a penalty for partnership. It's interesting though. So do you see sort of a need to continue to convince the marketers, the advertisers that you're working with, based on the data that you have today? Is there an ability to sort of confidently make different buying decisions into streaming? And now, by the way, you use different terminology.
I know I did.
So I got you. But is the lack of data actually inhibiting marketers that sort of have an intuitive belief that yes, my viewers, they're seeing my brand, they're watching content in different places, or is the fact that data is still sort of locked up and a little bit opaque sort of holding back some of that growth and movement across channels?
It's a little bit of both, honestly. I mean, we have a huge portfolio of advertisers. We have very, very advanced advertisers that have been buying advanced audiences and targeting for years at this point. So linear feels backwards to them. Legacy linear television doesn't feel quite right to those advertisers. And we're talking about billions of dollars globally for some of these advertisers. But then you have kind of that mid-market advertiser who buys significant amounts of television, and really they're the next to move. They're the next big category to move, and those are the dollars that you're going to open up. And I haven't heard a single streaming partner not raise their hand and say, yes, I want those advertisers, bring them to me. They all want them and they need them because they need that diversity in their own portfolio. And certainly if the pandemic has taught us nothing else, it's that diversification helps all. So we should really all get on board with that. And I really think that that's what the data unlocks, is going after different styles of advertisers. Because my mature, large advertisers that have been buying connected television, buying scheduled, buying on demand for a long period of time, they're pretty sophisticated at this point. Now it's time to bring everyone else along. Mm.
So I want you to comment a little on methodology, because I know we like to be sort of wonky here. What are some of the new methodology, the new techniques that we just need to get more comfortable with? Because all the tools and the data science that got us to where we are today are not going to get us to where we're going ahead. If there was one or two things you'd call out that is sufficient and you have confidence in, that you sort of wish the rest of the ecosystem would say, it's good enough, we should move forward with this approach?
I mean, she's just giving me a layup right now. As you've heard me mention households. So the thing about households and the thing about television that we have to remember, it's a shared device. Anybody can be in front of that television. And for years, this industry has taken for granted that Nielsen was somehow getting it right in terms of basing who was in front of the television on their own tiny panel. Well, they really are not going to get that right in streaming if it's based on a tiny panel. And yet that's what a lot of the industry is leaning into. They call it personification, but they're using tiny panels to determine who's actually in front of the television set. To me, that's adorable, but not productive. I think we should really be focused on things that we know can be accurate and can be precise. And that is really at the household level. We have really, really, really good data at the household level on the American consumer. And we can plan and we can measure based on persons within that household and understand mostly who we're reaching with a high degree of confidence. And we can do that today. So that's where I want to spend my effort, time, and energy, because I know I can get accurate reads that actually help us spend wisely on behalf of our clients. And that's what our omni planning capabilities are being built on, because we know we can do it, and we know it can be accurate, and we know that we have reliable household identity from the majority of our streaming partners. As I've said, figuring out who's in front of the TV set is like an existential problem. I don't know that we're ever going to know, right? But we have confidence of who lives within that household, because TVs don't move that often, let's be honest. I mean, how many people are carting a TV down the street? We're not, right? they stay in the same place for a while. So we kind of know if it's a TV device, that household's pretty reliable.
Yeah, it's such a foundational point, and the investment to get perfect precision, knowing exactly, attributing that viewer at any given moment is a lot of cost and time. And so if it's good enough and we can start to build a foundation on that, it's a really important insight for what the rest of the sort of measurement that hangs off of that composition looks like. So you mentioned audiences, and I actually want to go there next, because I have to believe that you're not having lots of conversations about how do we buy 18 to 24-year-olds maybe, but talk to us a little about the shift to go to real audiences, real consumers. What does that look like today? Is it happening? Where are some of the challenges? Because there's obviously there's privacy. There's
privacy
issues.
Concerns. It's definitely happening. So the interesting thing about television is how many people in this room are digital focused and actually care about cookies and things. Okay, only a few people. All right, okay, TV people, love you. You're my people. We never had cookies. We never had mobile identifiers, okay? We always just had TVs, right? And we bought on a one-to-many basis historically. But if you look at what's happening in the entire identity landscape, we are not going to escape rules and regulations here. So we need to be really cognizant that right now, almost the entire connected television industry is based on an IP address. That is PII based on new state laws across many states in the United States. So we have to treat that with the security and care that is required and demanded of us. And we also have to move to potentially a better system of identity management. And this is where partnerships, and particularly for my agency, Omnicom Media Group, we are focused on what's called clean room technology, which allows us to blindly match. So we never actually touch any personally identifiable information from any party. We can blindly match with confidence if we're holding PII with a major partner's PII. And we never touch it. We never see it. It's all blind. And we think that that's the next generation of the ad infrastructure that's going to enable this world to exist in a meaningful way that is consumer friendly and certainly consumer privacy friendly. And that's been the focus of our build out of our connected television identity capabilities, is really making that world possible, and then focusing on how that core understanding of that household in the United States can inform all of our media planning and buying and measurement.
So that infrastructure then lends itself to the planning, the construction of the target, where you might reach them, and then making sure that you actually did it.
Once I have a good understanding of who, based on this PII safe identity, then I can make better decisions. And that's all we're asking for, really, is if we get more efficient, it actually does benefit all of our partners, because then they're not having to re-up their schedules every 5 seconds like they do today. I mean, it's a lot of work on them every time we go through an upfront, and we can be a lot more efficient if we do this right.
It is kind of interesting to me that as an industry, we started with getting campaign measurement for Convergent TV, or all TV, however you want to describe it. It's interesting that we started there, and now we're sort of going back to, and then get the wiring right, the infrastructure piece that you're talking about. And now the last frontier, would you say, is actually planning, which, from a workflow perspective, you'd think we would have started there. But what's your take on why planning now? Is that the next big thing on the horizon? Is there something else that we need to be?
Well, it's the next big thing on the horizon, because that affects advertising strategy for me, right? So I need to make sure my advertisers have the data that they can use for strategy, which means planning has to follow measurement. We had to do measurement first, because if you don't understand what's happening at a campaign level, there's no foundation to build on. But now that we have decent confidence with campaign level, we can start looking to the future and getting more accurate planning tools. And once we really solve those problems, we're looking at a fully functioning industry. I mean, wouldn't that be great? It would be great. We'd love it.
We would. Well, but it's a very optimistic view. I mean, what you're basically sharing is, of course, there's no shortage of challenges getting there. There are problems to solve. You can sort of just tick them off as you go, but we are making progress. So that should be very optimistic for those that just survived whatever upfront just happened. Last question, Kelly, make a prediction. What do you think is, and you don't have to, it doesn't have to be about Netflix, because I know everyone asks you about Netflix, but where, and it can't be planning because you already said that, where do you see the industry in 18 months, 2 years? What's the next big thing that maybe we haven't talked about yet today?
that we haven't talked about yet today? Well, let's have some acronym fun. I actually do think that the broadcast equivalent is a FAST platform, right? So I think if you are a partner right now that we're historically a linear broadcast network, you will have to have a FAST platform. So there will be some changes coming soon in the next 2 years that will emerge around, you're going to have a FAST platform because you need the scale and you need the reach. And I need the scale and I need the reach, so please get them out there sooner, not later. So when you think about that, that's an interesting dynamic because everything I've just walked you through on the identity front does not apply to a FAST platform. FAST platforms are the equivalent of the old antenna in a television set, right? I have an internet connection and a smart TV, I get free television. So there's no identity. There's no identity beyond IP address. So you really, really have to solve that problem to make that work.
I feel like you took that question and made it a wand wish, like what would I like to happen, but it's good. Okay, so a couple of takeaways. Thank you, as always, for breaking it down for us. A couple of takeaways, and then definitely want to hear questions in the room. The first is I think we can agree with this. We do need to redefine television. It means a certain thing to different constituents in the market. Scheduled or demand, but it's all television at the end of the day. Planning is fundamentally broken, but I think what we heard today is we have the tools to start to rebuild it to better facilitate planning and buying in a convergent TV ecosystem. And the last one, don't overcomplicate things. I mean, it is complicated, I guess is the point, but I think there are ways to not let that impede progress going forward. So let's turn it over to the group. Any questions? Any virtual questions? I've got plenty more questions. Okay, great.
That was a good point at the end. Don't overcomplicate it. I find that a little funny because it is so complicated in the CTV space. I'd love to hear how you kind of approach how to clear through all of the clutter, because you can buy this inventory, through so many different providers. It's like, where is it even coming from? Why is it not just so much more straightforward? Is there a way that you kind of approach that and can kind of educate others on that?
So yes, you've just described my job. So, so we actually have virtual learning sessions and in-person learning sessions with all of our clients at Omnicom Media Group, and we provide detailed, easy to digest, we call them placemats, and they're basically slides to help format the human brain into thinking about television in simple ways. So we break it down into the metrics that matter. We break it down into the reach we think are available across these platforms. We break it down between delivery channels. We break it down on price. We break it down on ad formats. We break it down on ad experience. So we have this sort of checklist of things that we know we care about that inform a better consumer experience and a better campaign. And we have placemats upon placemats for every partner that we do business with so that we can compare across the board, across all of these categories. Some people call it a partner scorecard when it comes to the upfront because we get into the real nitty-gritty on the scorecard. But in general, we update these placemats regularly every quarter, particularly as earnings statements come out from all the major streaming partners, right? Because as I said, there's no great third-party source to understand streaming reach or capabilities. So we are actively monitoring earnings reports to get the latest results from Wall Street that they're claiming and breaking it out for all of our clients so that you can understand on an ongoing basis what growth looks like, and what likely reach looks like across all of these different partners.
Thank you.
Another question? It's the Innovid section. It's going to be
the Innovid section.
Yeah, brace yourself. This is going to be a tough one.
Hi, everyone. So Kelly, great presentation, super interesting concepts. Jessica, fantastic. My question was about the right balance between planning and optimization. You've talked plenty about the tools that we have for planning, that they might be there or not. At the same time, there's quite a bit of data that is good data available within 2 weeks or sooner to be able to optimize. So for large advertisers, what would you say is the right balance between planning and optimizing?
Well, it starts with strategic planning, right? So it's strategic planning. At the strategic planning stage, I'm understanding reach across all of my partners, all of my platforms, But I'm also understanding reach across how I buy. So I have to have a number for how I would buy in a scatter or programmatic landscape and how I would buy in an upfront landscape. Once I've established these budgetary criteria, right, then I can move into what I would characterize as tactical planning. And that's where I would get into budget allocations per partner in each method of buying. And that's where the campaign measurement really, really, really plays a role. But I still need to understand the total universe, which is where strategic planning still plays a role. I still need to understand the total potential reach, even for things I didn't buy historically, because campaign measurement is just what I purchased, not what I could have purchased. So I need both at all levels of the planning and operations process with our clients. And the way I look at it is campaign can be optimization, it can be tactical planning. Strategic planning is budgetary allocation and it's partner allocation. These work streams exist across the agency for all of our advertisers, and they obviously bump up against each other. There's a lot of overlap, and this is why the team that's collaborating on this is tight for every client. I don't know if I really answered the question, but the reality is campaign measurement tactical, but I'm using that data to inform what I'm thinking about strategically so I get the overlap allocations correctly.
I think there's also the use case, tell me, what you see of, and now the campaign is live, because to your point earlier, we're getting data faster. It's no longer that I'm waiting 3 months to say, that was all, best plans, best intentions to actually produce anything. You can see it's 2 weeks in, the reach didn't cum the way I thought it was going to. Where can I, both with the constraints, move some dollars around, but also move the creative so it can be performant. I presume that, the same teams are also looking for those opportunities to course correct.
Yes, and there are different layers of what you can do, right?
Sure.
So if you look at, anything related to an upfront, this is a guarantee. So we're buying. But what I can do is start moving that money to different streaming endpoints if I'm smarter about how the consumer viewership is playing out and where my ads are actually happening. And then on the programmatic side, that's where I can get into pretty detailed campaign optimization, where if I'm low on reach, I can really drive incremental reach using measurement tools and making sure that I'm hitting the right households to make sure that we're getting the total reach we need to deliver, of course, the performance for the advertisers.
That's right. It's all about the ROI. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it there. I know we're a little over time, but thank you so much, and thanks for being here.